European Union leaders and Turkey are due to pick up where they left off last week in Brussels as they attempt to finalise a pact on curbing migration to Europe. One aim is to stop people risking their lives via the Aegean Sea route. In this Turkish town of Basmane in Izmir, migrants who've made it this far meet up with people traffickers and await a departure time. The hotels are cheap and the shops sell such things as life jackets and other necessities for taking the risky journey to Greece. Not only Syrians but Afghans, Iraqis and Libyans want to leave. Fatir, a local in the town, has noticed a fall in the numbers going.
Over
the last few weeks, many people, many Syrians, who said goodbye to us for good, about 90%, couldn't go. They came back and said we couldn't. The reason, they say, Germany doesn't accept us anymore, or the weather's bad. But there are many people who are planning to go in the summer. With the weather improving, time is of the essence for the EU and Turkey to begin implementing the joint action plan. Our reporter in Basmane says the activity in Basmane, which is a meeting point for those who are trying to get to Europe, has diminished in recent weeks. The impact of any possible measures being carried out as a consequence of the deal with Turkey will only be seen clearly when the summer comes.
Euronews, Izmir.
A Kurdish militant group has claimed responsibility for Sunday's Ankara car bombing. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks say the attack targeted the heart of fascist Turkey, where they say the wildest slaughter decisions are taken by those in control. 37 people were killed in Sunday's attack. The blast tore through a crowded transport hub, sending burning debris over an area close to the Justice and Interior Ministries. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks, or TAK, was once connected with the banned Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK. The group said it was also to blame for the February car bombing in Ankara that killed 29 people. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks described Sunday's car bombing as revenge for security operations in the mainly Kurdish southeast of Turkey that have been underway since July. Analysts say that Turkey's military offensive against the PKK in Turkey and northern Iraq give Kurdish militants an incentive to stage such attacks. The Kurdistan Freedom Hawks have threatened further assaults.
On the same day, North Korea sentenced a US student to 15 years in prison with hard labor. Washington announced tough new sanctions. Otto Warmbier was paraded before the cameras to beg for forgiveness for stealing a propaganda banner from a hotel. The 21-year-old was arrested over the new year at the end of a 5-day group tour.
The allegations for which this individual was arrested and imprisoned would not give rise to arrest or imprisonment in the United States or in just about any other country in the world. It is increasingly clear that the North Korean government seeks to use these U.S. citizens as pawns to pursue a political agenda.
The sanctions over North Korea's recent nuclear and missile testing include the freezing of North Korean government property in the U.S. and a ban on U.S. exports to North Korea. Scores of high schools are blockaded across France as students join demonstrations against controversial labour reforms. The government is in the middle of fierce debate with unions over plans to overhaul rules about working conditions and hours. A national day of protest has already taken place. Student groups complain they were not included in the government negotiations and were then later received by officials.
Members of the French Parliament visit the Bataclan concert hall in Paris. It's part of a government inquiry into the November the 13th attacks in the French capital. 89 people lost their lives here when Islamic militants opened fire at a packed rock concert. We'll get a chronological impression of how the police intervened during the attacks, he says, and answer questions that the committee has, and all the victims, their families, and the French people as well. The investigation's meant to help avoid a repeat of the attacks. The relatives of some victims have criticized the exercise as needlessly painful.
Pourquoi ont-ils besoin de venir là?
Why do they need to come here, she asks, to look at what happened when we parents still don't know what time our children died?
Nous ne savons toujours pas à quelle heure nos enfants sont décédés.
All that my son's death certificate says is that he died sometime between the 13th and 14th of November.
Il y a marqué décès constaté entre le 13 et 14 novembre.
The repercussions from the Paris attacks continue to be felt in France. The upper house of parliament has voted by an overwhelming 301 votes to 38 to write the process for declaring a state of emergency into the country's constitution.
Protests have erupted across Brazil after President Dilma Rousseff appointed her predecessor, Lula da Silva, as her chief of staff. The anger has been fueled by the release of a taped conversation claiming the move is meant to protect Lula from prosecution. President Dilma Rousseff has maintained her loyalty to Lula despite his being charged last week with money laundering and fraud. The tape, which has caused outrage across the country, was released by the judge heading Brazil's biggest corruption investigation in history. It's claimed it reveals Rousseff offering the appointment to Lula. The recording was made without the participants' knowledge. Under Brazilian law, cabinet ministers can only be tried by the country's Supreme Court. In response to the tape release, the presidential palace has issued a statement calling it an affront to the privacy of the presidency and a violation of the constitution. Lula and other influential figures have become embroiled in a scandal which began with the state-owned oil company Petrobras and kickbacks for lucrative contracts. Lula denies any wrongdoing and says the allegations are aimed at preventing him from running for president again in 2018.
Former head of Israeli security agency Mossad, Meir Dagan, has died, aged 71. Under his leadership, Mossad reportedly carried out covert attacks against Iranian nuclear scientists and unleashed cyber attacks. He had openly criticized Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's opposition to the Iran nuclear deal. US-based Seaworld is to stop breeding killer whales. Bowing to years of pressure from animal rights activists, the theme park says their current whales will be their last. Seaworld says it's set aside $50 million to help end commercial whaling and seal hunting over the next 5 years. Egypt says it's unearthed further evidence that a secret chamber may lie behind King Tutankhamun's tomb. Radar scans performed in November suggest 2 empty spaces behind walls in the former king's chamber. Some believe it may be the lost burial site of Queen Nefertiti, who once ruled over ancient Egypt.